Why hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Apezilla's Replay Reviews, a series wherein we deconstruct many of my replays, character by character, and get a better idea of Hero's goals in each matchup, as it applies to Hero's neutral, disadvantage state, advantage state, setups, and general game plan. Now fair warning, the gameplay ahead is going to feature some very high-octane action, as we discuss one of Hero's hardest, yet most rewarding matchups to learn. That's right, today we talk about Captain Douglas J. Falcon, a character whose game plan is diametrically opposed to Hero's at face value. But as you'll soon learn, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. But before we begin, I should mention that this video features two different Falcon players. One that I encountered while I was still ironing out the finer intricacies of the matchup, and one from just a couple of months ago, during a time where I was way more comfortable with the Falcon matchup and to more thoroughly understand where my priorities lie against the character. That being said, I found that I was playing pretty darn well during both sessions, and so I wanted to feature them both in order to display this matchup at an even deeper level. And so without further ado, go ahead and sit back and relax as we begin to show Captain Falcon some of our moves. Let's get into Game 1. Alright, so starting off here, we're going to be throwing out as many hitboxes as possible to get Falcon past 20%. The reason we do this is because Hero's combo game starts to become a bit truer once we're at those lower mid-percents. And Falcon, as a relatively heavy character, needs to have quite a bit of damage off on him before our aerials and projectiles start sending him off stage, providing a lot of leverage for Hero in this matchup, as Falcon has the potential to hit harder and faster during certain interactions, as well as kill Hero at absurdly low percents if we give him the opportunity. And so maintaining a healthy percent lead is a huge point of focus for Hero. Now an equally important part of the matchup that it's important to focus on is how the Falcon player likes to approach, as he has many options in the air as well as on the ground to do so. That being said, the best Falcons will make sure to mix up many different approach options in order to keep you on your toes as to how you're walling Falcon out once he's at those mid-percents. Now there at the ledge, you saw that I didn't panic while Falcon was overdosing on smash attacks, because I'm aware of the fact that Falcon only has two options for reliably poking beneath the ledge: short hop down air and down tilt, both of which he needs to be virtually on top of Hero in order to get, which is of course reactable. And though some Falcon players may mix in some runoff back air in addition to ledge trump back air, they are by far the exception and not the rule. And so we do our best to take our time getting back to center, as always. Because if you don't, you can end up dropping shield early after doing a normal getup into shield, only to get obliterated by Falcon Punch. Because even though I thought it was misspaced, I was clearly mistaken, as I do not have that much experience counterplaying around a move that's never used. Despite the setback, however, we were able to get Falcon to a percent where he should reasonably die to any stray hit from Hero. And so a well-timed kaboom from center stage manages to take the first stock, and we are by no means out of this game yet, as Hero can be an equally explosive character when just given a hint of momentum. Momentum squandered. Time to try and cheese my opponent. And as that magic burst whiffs, much like my dreams of winning this game, I feel the need to explain something about this matchup as mid-tier Hero attempts to bring this back. Now it's important to understand that Hero gets outclassed in the air, as Falcon is both faster and has better aerial frame data. In addition to this, Falcon has the second fastest run speed in the entire game. These two things in combination mean that it's very difficult for Hero to get away and keep his space against Falcon, as Falcon can get anywhere he needs to be on the stage in a fraction of a second. And so when reapplying Hero's place in this matchup, taking these attributes into account, I found that the matchup wasn't as unforgiving as games like this made me believe it was. More on that later. There you saw me continue to be patient at the ledge, as I had less than 5 mana, and being sent off again during the ledge trapping phase could result in me losing my final stock, since I wouldn't have enough mana to recover. And so always make sure you're peeking at the gauge when trying to come back. There we have one of my favorite reversals in the game, wherein my opponent at high percent attempts to juggle Hero, only to find that the downward traveling hitboxes of Swoosh gently escort them into the blast zone, allowing me one last laugh before this game ends in tragedy. And there we see one of the saddest things about being a hero main sometimes. Since the menu prior to me ending up off stage did have zoom in it, I was unable to get it in my first off-stage menu. And since my opponent's positioning forced me to go low without enough mana to reasonably up B safely, I was forced to cycle through 2 more menus in an effort to find zoom, unluckily resulting in my untimely demise. Alright, now for game 2, we end up on FD, which is troublesome for Hero in this matchup because of 2 reasons. The first being that there are no more platforms that allow us to relieve ground pressure from Falcon, as well as mix up our landings and approaches to center from disadvantage. We also won't be able to take advantage of any of our platform tech chases that can be used to take stocks earlier from Falcon. This becomes problematic because of the fact that Falcon can still kill us as early as he wants, while still being able to live for as long as he tends to. The other aspect of this matchup that becomes very difficult to contend with on FD is something I refer to as air camping. This strategy refers to when your opponent is full hopping over your head in anticipation of a commitment. If you commit to something, they can punish you with a landing aerial that can end up being a combo starter for a lot of characters. If you don't commit to something, your opponent can simply react with their double jump and punish what you do after predicting their full hop, or they can simply use that same double jump to drift back to where they originally jumped from, typically out of range of your attacks. Now, while many characters utilize this strategy when making an approach, especially on stages like FD, Falcons are notoriously known to favor this option because of their airspeed and absurdly high full hop, with which, when in combination with their equally as absurdly high double jump, allow the Falcon player to be able to full hop in and out of their opponent's threat range, waiting to land a stray aerial that can lead into a lot of damage. This strategy is particularly effective on characters that do not have a very good ground speed to catch his landings, and/or a jump height that allows that character to anti-air Falcon on reaction. Now luckily, Hero falls somewhere in between these 2 categories, but Hero players have a tendency to remain stationary and wait for their opponent's landings in order to get a menu option that can catch it for them. The problem with this, of course, is that if the Falcon player is able to option select his landings with air camping, then the Hero player is only putting themselves at risk by going for a menu option, meanwhile the Falcon is not in any danger at all. Characters with multiple jumps are also known for this strategy, and so be on the lookout for it anytime you're on a stage without platforms. And so, as I try my best to desperately claw my way back into this essentially futile game, I think it'll be pertinent to explain what I've learned about the matchup since these games occurred. Hero is a character that has access to a disjointed hitbox that allows him to wall his opponents out in most situations. And although Falcon tends to struggle with characters like this, Hero can particularly struggle because of the fact that he can't keep up with Falcon's speed and frame data. Or at least, that's what I used to think. Until I realized that a disjoint is a disjoint, no matter how slow. And as long as Falcon is forced to approach Hero, lest he get pelted with lethal projectiles, the Hero player can always extend their perception of Falcon's threat range to a distance that allows them to react to his approaches, all the while prioritizing positioning over winning every isolated neutral exchange. And when in combination with Hero's advanced and tricky movement, something to which I've become very accustomed to as a player, well, take a look. Well, I'd say that's a pretty good adjustment. All I need to do now is clean up the execution. And so, the new and improved game plan against Falcon goes a little bit like this. At all times, regardless of percent, make sure you're at a reactable distance versus Falcon, taking into account Hero's slow frame data and Falcon's absurdly fast approach options. If Falcon does manage to get close, prioritize repositioning yourself on the stage so as to be able to react to any option he would go for. Anytime he does a run-up shield, respect it and reposition yourself. You'll eventually condition the Falcon player to expect you to do this so that he won't be in shield for much longer before trying to get his hands on you, and you can always call this out. Once you're at mid% or higher, it can be very risky to grab Falcon's shield, as he can always just down air into knee, in addition to use one of his out of shield options to get you killed. Once again, opt to reposition and pressure his shield from afar if you can. In order to execute this game plan as efficiently as possible, it is utterly essential that you work on your movement in order to keep up with Falcon's speed. Feel free to get creative off stage in order to prevent Falcon from being able to edgeguard you, but make sure you're careful, as your mana gauge can hinder or benefit you depending on the situation. No matter what, make sure that when you're at the ledge against Falcon, you play it as patient as possible. Wait for the Falcon player to overextend and give up center, and that is when you can pick your option. If the Falcon player decides to slow their pace down and play the waiting game instead, you could pressure them to approach by threatening the menu, any of your projectiles, or even your movement if you feel confident enough to weave in and out of Falcon's threat range safely. And as you can see, when your opponent gets a little desperate for the stock, they'll try their best to cover as much space as possible with a kill move like Falcon Kick in order to catch their more slippery opponents. Now in editing, I did manage to count the amount of Falcon Kicks my opponent did before losing his second stock. 7 Falcon Kicks in a row to try and catch me at high percent. Falcon mains are a different breed. With all of that said, this game plan, when executed perfectly, is going to feel like you are the matador attempting to calm a raging bull in an arena. This analogy works even better because I'm using the red hero skin, but I promise you it can work with any of the hero alts in the game. Now for the remainder of this game, as I have earned a very healthy lead, I can sort of play the resiliency game, which, as discussed in the previous episode, involves making sure that you do not stop playing neutral just because you have a stock lead. As we saw many times in the previous games, Falcon can kill Hero quite easily if he finds him off stage, and so we need to make sure that we're at least trading percents each and every interaction while I still have a stock lead to my name. Now, alongside the general theme of resiliency in this case, it's important to understand how Falcon's combos work in order to escape them as soon as humanly possible. As hero, the general rule is to DI down and away anytime you get down thrown, because even if Falcon mixes up his follow-up by going for Raptor Boost, Dash Attack, or Falcon Kick, in all likelihood he will get a lot less damage off of the situation than if you were to hold in during any of his combos. In addition to this, be ready to tech the stage at mid percents when you do this, as well as mix up your up B timings if you were to end up off stage at the end of the down throw. Try to avoid getting spiked when doing this, but understand that if it does happen, it is truly not a big deal. Because remember, Hero is a character that takes things stocks at a time. You can always bring it back. Alternatively, if you get hit by Raptor Boost in neutral, make sure to generally DI down and away, but if you end up on the top end of the move, DIing up and in is also a valid way to DI the follow-ups. Now Falcon has a lot of stray kill confirms that he can get off of aerials, but as you'll be keeping him at arm's length from you anyway, you should not fall into any of these with any luck. And last but not least, make sure to not fall asleep at the wheel while DIing, as the Falcon player will try to read what you do after, even if their combo isn't true. But we do manage to take that game with one of the sickest trades I've ever witnessed, and so I think it's time that we put this game plan up to the ultimate test. It's time for Final Destination. And so, with the help of our new game plan, we're able to not only pressure Falcon by reading his options and anticipating with our slow aerials, but when we're not up close, we can also position ourselves in a way so that if Falcon decides to air camp us, he'll either be out of range of a full hop approach, or allow us to cross him up by going under him. In either situation, you're ideally going to be avoiding Falcon's aerials, preserving mana, and putting yourself in a much easier position to whiff punish Falcon's approaches. Now you can also call out Falcon's jumps as a mix-up, but be very careful when doing this as said before, Captain Falcon outclasses you in the air. And the last thing you need is to be put into a position where you're now being juggled by Falcon with limited landing options on FD and no stage control to call your own. Speaking of which, I think it's about time that we talk about holding advantage against Falcon, especially when you have him in the corner. Now the thing to understand about ledge trapping fundamentally is that it doesn't necessarily have to do with covering all options off of the ledge, but primarily guarding center stage. There was a time where I would treat ledge trapping like a guessing game, wherein I was able to hit my opponent if I guessed right, but if I guessed wrong, I would let them get back to stage, or even worse, get reversal. And while that last part is still mostly true, just like how some characters have better ledge trapping tools than others, some characters have better tools for getting back to center stage than others. When I realized this, I understood why Wolf players and Falcon players have a tendency to jump at the ledge before doing any other option. If they're faster in the air than their opponent can keep up with, they can allow themselves a free ticket to center stage if their opponent is assuming a traditional ledge trapping position, which is around roll distance. And while you shouldn't necessarily abandon this position entirely when ledge trapping Falcon, it's important to remember that you can't react to jump from ledge as quickly as other options, and so center stage needs to be guarded at all costs. As long as you do that, you'll always be in an ideal situation, even if your opponent gets off the ledge without taking damage. And as a bonus, go decondition that option, allowing you to get more traditional ledge trapping options covered as well in the future. As you can clearly see by the noob option of forward smash my opponent at the ledge, making its debut appearance in this video against a really good Falcon player. And that just goes to show you the power of conditioning in a game like this. And so, as our FD game enters a last stock situation, I think it's important that we take note of how well the neutral game has improved throughout the course of this video. Despite how hopeless it seemed at first, simply by talking through your frustrations and accepting the reality of the character matchup, you can very realistically reinvent the matchup for yourself and understand both characters' strengths and weaknesses in any given situation, allowing you to improve your decision making by taking those things into account, as well as find an easier path to adaptation by developing a game plan that works on any level of player. So to that point, use each loss as an opportunity to experiment. You'd be surprised what you can find. Like if Falcon dash dances near the ledge and lets his hurt box shift behind him every time he turns around. Yeah, not much more to say there, and so now you will be treated to perhaps the best game I've ever played against the Falcon, taking everything we've discussed into account. Enjoy! Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. If you learned anything, or have any questions regarding anything you saw in the video, feel free to let me know below, and I'll be sure to get to it when I can. Likes and shares are always greatly appreciated, and if you feel compelled to subscribe to this channel, well, I won't stop you. But until next time, have a safe Labor Day, and happy hunting!